Securing Alpha.
UAV ready for deployment.
In the turn, sensors are capture your objective.
Hellstorm on standby.
How's it going, guys? Gray back with another gameplay. Still working on these subscriber questions, and I got a good one today. Alright, this one comes from OMG It's Nyan Cat. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but let's move on from that. I'll put it on the screen. You guys can decide for yourself. So, he says that he doesn't normally subscribe to people who were featured on TSG or Thunderstruck Gaming, but for some reason he liked what I had to say. And his question is this: were you a rebellious teenager like most kids, or were you different because of your faith? And I found it kind of interesting. You know, I did the commentary on TSG where I talked about, you know, why you shouldn't curse in your commentaries and, you know, taking the Lord's name in vain. And I guess what happened is a lot of people assume that because I said that, I've been this goody two-shoes kid my whole life, and I'm one of those Bible thumpers. I don't know how you guys word it anymore. Somebody asked me if I'm a diehard Christian, which I'm going to get to that one later. But rebellious teenager, you know, I don't even know if that goes far enough to explain what I was. I'll tell you about myself a little bit. So, my father was a minister. My mom was a school teacher. I have two older brothers and a younger sister. And, you know, growing up, we had a great life. It wasn't until my eldest brother, I think, was 15, 16 years old that he went off on the deep end. And I mean, drugs and drinking and partying were involved. And then my brother, who was next to me, he's 2 years older than me, he started going down that path as well. And of course, you know, just because of my brothers and peer pressure and that kind of thing, I started following down that path as well. I was always good at school, though. Okay, and this is where it got really tricky for my parents, because, you know, with my two older brothers, they struggled in school, so it was obvious whenever they were going down the wrong path with drugs and everything that, you know, my parents could point to that and say, see, this is the results of what you're doing, you need to stop. And you know, they were getting in trouble left and right, but me, I was different. I was smart, so I got really good grades in school. I didn't have to try. Yes, I'm one of those kids in your school that you hated because they finished their work faster than everybody and they got straight A's and they never struggled. It just came natural. Yes, that was me, and it didn't matter what I did in my extracurricular activities, I could still do it. So my parents didn't really notice it. And then I was a good-looking kid, and I was popular, I was good at sports, and, you know, I was nice, the teachers loved me. So for my parents to, you know, think that I was doing drugs and, you know, getting involved with girls at a really young age and making really poor decisions in my life, they were caught unaware. But they saw my eldest brother falling apart, and then my other brother falling apart, and I was 15 years old, I was in 9th grade. And I think, or maybe I was 14, and they somewhat blamed it on the school that we were in, a big school, 5A high school, you know, what, 2,500, 3,000 kids. And so they pulled me out, and they put me into a charter school. Some of y'all probably don't know what a charter school is. This was back when Bill Clinton was president of the United States. He had this program of charter schools, you know, kind of like a public-private school. And you wore uniforms. Back then, uniforms weren't really used. And so we had uniforms, and it was smaller class sizes. Usually it was the nerdier kids that went to these. So my parents pulled me out of public high school, and they put me in here, and that pretty much saved my life. Okay, there was one other move that took place as well. There was a program at my church. Now, I was a believer at this point, but I wasn't, quote unquote, walking in my faith, I guess you could say. I knew that Jesus was my Lord and Savior, and, you know, I had a firm foundation in that, but I hadn't devoted my life to Him. There was a program at our church. It was kind of like a group counseling program. It's not unlike what most people do these days for like AA and things like that. And what it is all these different people who are struggling with different issues in their life. Most of them are adults. I think the average age was, the youngest was like 27 all the way up into the 50s and 60s. Well, they made an exception for me because of, you know, what my family was going through because of my two older brothers. So at the age of 15, I went into this group, and it was a intensive 6-week program of group counseling and therapy where we'd meet on the weekends. And through that program and the move that my parents made in pulling me out of that public high school pretty much saved my life. Because when I hit 10th grade, in my first semester, my grades in school were so good, and just to define how good they were perfect. I had straight 100s. And so the counselor came to me and they wanted me to take a test. And so I took a test, and this test was supposed to be an equivalent to the SAT. And I scored so high, it was like scoring an 1800 on the SAT, to the point where all these universities were contacting me, wanting me to go to school there. And so I tested out of high school, I went right into college. And what it did was it caused me to mature very, very quickly. And with those 3 steps, the group counseling session, and then my parents pulling me out of high school, and then me entering into college whenever I was 15 years old, because of those, I really walked away from a lot of poor decisions I was making in my life, primarily drugs. Not hard drugs, you guys. I wasn't doing like heroin or coke or meth or anything. I was smoking a lot of weed, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, but it's not the greatest thing for you when you're young, okay? And I'm not proud of it. I also smoked at that time. Drinking was never really a big thing for me because I just didn't like the taste of alcohol, and I'd watch what it did to my older brothers. So, I mean, to answer your question, OMG, it's not that I was a perfect kid growing up. I was a bad kid, but not the worst of the worst by any means. But, you know, the thing about a Christian is this, and this is where there's this preconceived notion that a Christian is a goody two-shoes. That actually is the furthest thing from the truth that you could possibly come to. A true Christian is somebody who went through life and made horrible decisions and horrible mistakes, realized that the path that they were going down was the wrong path, and that they were incapable of saving themselves, and they needed something greater in their life to do it for them. See, a Christian believes that Jesus lived the life that we couldn't live and died the death that we deserve because of the mistakes that we make in our life on a daily basis. Now, you may not believe that, but when you go through what I went through, and when you see the destruction that is caused by poor decisions by a family member, you start to realize that there is something greater than what you're doing in your life. And when you talk about having purpose, because I know there was another question about this, I'm going to get to this one soon. There is nothing greater than to serve something eternal, okay? Because nothing temporal will last. That's a little bit deep, I know. If you don't want to ask me to expand on that, I will. But to answer your question, man, I was just like every other kid. I didn't truly start walking in my faith until I was in my 20s, my early 20s, right before I had children, okay? All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed the video in the background. I'm sure it's an amazing gameplay because I've got so many. I don't know which one I'm putting in here. Maybe that gameplay on Combine where I scored over 10,000 points. Ooh, buddy. All right, you guys, thumbs up that video if you liked it. Leave a comment down below. And as always, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.